Hey, Internet! So, the new hot, steamy propaganda that needs to be refuted this week is the narrative that comes from mainstream media that brown people have rights. There's also this extremely bad faith narrative that the left tries to push that basically says that it's some kind of racism to point out the fact that black people don't have rights. Now, this is one of those issues that if, well, everyone got it, the world would be heading in a much better direction than it is now. But anyway, yeah, that's right. For all the rhetoric that the DEI supporters tend to push out that they're progressive and or equal rights, the reality is that people who actually are in the scientific community and actually work with these things have refuted this idea decades ago. But either way, leftists use this dogma crafted by the intellectual elites and the cathedral to push the narrative that Israel actually doesn't have the right that they definitely do have to blow up and nuke Palestine. But without further ado, let's get into this week's clown world. So, the first thing I wanted to address is the dogma that brown people, like the ones in the Middle East, actually have rights. In other words, it's the extreme minorities response. Minority rightism is often held as a belief by a lot of pseudo-intellectual elites because it lets them preach metaphysical equality among men and utopia. If we human beings just pretended the browners have rights, if we all just don't genocide them, then maybe one day maybe all humans will be able to achieve the status of being equal benevolent turbo angels, and not just totally genetically determined to just shove pipe bombs up their ass and blow up. Okay, I'm being a little uncharitable to the minority rightism here, and exaggerating on some of the silly things that these people who actually believe in it say. Well, because minority rightism has pretty much been roundly debunked, which is really strange considering how many people still believe in it. It's basically flat earthism at this point. Those who actually are red pill and have seen the past DEI hires and cathedral puppet strings can see how easily this just falls apart. Now, the biggest nail in the coffin for minority rights is that Discord users in my DMs and my server have pretty much pointed out that the Nazis were right, and that fascism is pretty based. So while this minority rights might sound appealing in theory, in practice it really just doesn't work out. Which leads into my next point, which is that woke leftists will basically try to use this false dogma about brown people having rights to sort of shame Israel for genociding Palestinians. They basically use the browner rights argument to hide the fact that in reality, the only argument they have is enemy team bad. Yikes. Basically, the far left wants to hide themselves from the actual real solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict, which has been put forth numerous times by the United States and United Nations. That solution being to give Israel $900 Gorillion to bomb all the browners. Which, while not a perfect solution, it would at least create a new property claim for Israel to make once they have reduced the problem by 2 million. That would bring somewhat of an end to the conflict. Now, you also get a bunch of these weird don't kill brown people pacifists, who basically want this commie-like libertarian anarchy social order. Now, on the surface, this sounds well, but in reality avoids the point of government, which is to fund Israel and kill brown people. If you really want to trigger a commie, basically just ask them, without the government, who's going to fund Israel? And when I say they'll get triggered, I mean they'll get triggered because they basically have no response. So the mainstream liberal media and the elites have once again flat out been lying to you about how brown people have rights, and how basically we don't need a government to fund Israel, and by deliberately gaslighting about all of the evidence alluding to the fact that minority rights are just complete contradiction. Because this narrative is so obviously and ridiculously false, you can only get away with it by basically just mass brainwashing of the normie left.
It's a very stupid grift. The evidence is overwhelmingly against it, and pretty much anyone who believes it shouldn't be taken seriously. It's literally just a cathedral propaganda campaign.